here in memory of Dwight Clark, who fully embraced this idea of quarterbacks over generations coming together here tonight. Each of these men got to the NFL in different ways. They overcame different obstacles to get here. And Steve, I'm going to start with you. When you look at this group here in front of you, what do you see?
I see warriors.
Be nice, be nice.
No, I do like see warriors. The NFL has a way of sifting any kind of, in some ways, emotional weakness that you have and forces you to the sidelines. And the people who stay on the field, by definition, not necessarily have the strongest arm or the fastest guys. It's the warriors that find their way to stay on the field. And so, and I see each one of you. I knew Jeff because he followed me. I know Alex for many years. I've got to know Brock now. Everyone has a different story, but everyone was on the field. And the fact is, to stay on for the 49ers, you're a warrior. And I'll share the stage with you guys.
Steve, so you're going to follow him again. How difficult was it to follow a Hall of Fame quarterback?
Well, absolutely. I came into the 49ers being a fan of the 49ers, growing up in Gilroy, watching Joe through the 80s and 90s, and then obviously Steve. I mean, I followed Steve when he was at BYU, seeing what he did in the Holiday Bowl. Followed him at the USFL, watched him with the LA Express, and then obviously coming to the 49ers and continuing the legacy and the tradition of winning. I mean, more than anything, 49ers were going through 2 decades of greatness at that time, and he continuing that at that position. Now, me following that, I felt like there were some big shoes to fill, obviously, and I thought coming into the 49er organization, I'd have a great opportunity to learn from one of the best, to play the game, watch him, see how he does it, try to emulate him, hey, be on his heels, classroom, all those things. Unfortunately, that situation came to an abrupt end, but it opened up an opportunity for me to step on the field and, hey, learn through the trial, through fire, through air, through all the ups and downs, and that first year was a struggle, but we got it turned around, and I think more than anything, like Steve said about being a warrior, the grit and the tenacity that you have to have, it's represented in a different way being the quarterback. We don't get to go out and hit people, but that being said, you still have a certain toughness physically and mentally to you that allows you or forces you to exceed what anybody else's expectations are of you. My expectations of myself were that I'm going to step in, I'm going to find a way, and I'm going to lead this team, and I'm going to get my guys involved, and we're going to find a way to be successful. It took us a couple years. Finally, we did it, but that being said, it was a great honor for me to be a part of the 49er organization, a dream come true, and to follow one of my idols like Steve Young.
The franchise you join, a lot of pressure. How much more pressure when you're the #1 overall pick and you're not even 21 years old yet?
Yeah, it was unique for obviously to take what Jeff just talked about. There had never been a franchise that have a Joe and Steve. Like that had never happened. And then you throw we just heard Jeff set the franchise record for yards, right? He had carried it on. And all of a sudden to be the #1 pick, and as a 20-year-old, those were things that I had never dealt with, right? I had one college scholarship offer. I had been flying under the radar my entire life, and now all of a sudden, huge expectations put upon me, and I felt like I had to be Joe Montana, Steve Young, and Peyton Manning, right? As the #1 pick for the San Francisco 49ers, and it was a lot. It was a lot. I felt like I had to be perfect, and I struggled with that my first few years, walking onto a field on eggshells, right? Trying not to make any mistakes. I got to be perfect, and it was every day at practice. It was in the meeting rooms. I felt like that, and kind of became my own worst enemy. you know, as anybody can imagine, you try to do anything, let alone play quarterback as a rookie or a young player. That's certainly a recipe for a disaster. And it wasn't, at the time, it wasn't like something that got talked about a lot. You know, again, I didn't get to play with a veteran quarterback early on, and so there wasn't necessarily that resource there. So I struggled with it for several years before kind of found my way out of it, thankful to some, you know, certainly some teammates and coaches.
Your situation, very unique in its own way. It seemed to happen so quickly. You know, the last pick in the draft, you're the third string quarterback during the offseason. You beat out the second string, but then you go back to third string. Then you become second string, and then first string after injuries. It happened so quickly. Did it feel like it happened that quickly? And what was your mindset when they told you basically, get off the sideline, get in the huddle, and now you're the starting quarterback for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I feel like there was... My rookie year, I feel like there was just so many different stages. There was, you get drafted last, trying to come in, you know, make an impression with the coaches, trying to make the team. The preseason, I made the team, and all of a sudden, you know, I'm P squad quarterback, and then Trey goes down, so Jimmy's in, I'm back up. I backed him up for 13 weeks, and it wasn't until week 13 I got in. And then the last, I think that was like 8-9 games that I played, it felt like a whole nother season. So it was just from one stage to the next. It was probably the longest year of my life, to be honest. But, it was a great year just in terms of learning all the different roles, trying to make the team, how can I be a great backup and serve Jimmy and Trey, to then getting thrown in and having to win and start. And so I learned all three different stages in, you know what, under 6 months. So a crazy year, but was thankful to learn a lot of things from that. And I think it's set up, you know, my second year in the league.
Did you have certain mechanisms that enabled you to handle that pressure that comes with being starting quarterback for the 49ers?
Yeah, I would say when I got thrown in, you know, at that point, man, we were winning, and all that was on my mind was, how can I continue to keep this thing going? How can I continue to do my part to get our team to a Super Bowl and win? And, you know, I think going into my second year is when, you know, the thoughts of, man, I'm you know, starting for the San Francisco 49ers, and then you got, you know, the standard that Joe and Steve had set and all these guys up here. And I think that's when, you know, those thoughts start rolling in of, okay, like there's a standard here, and I have to, you know, live up to that standard.
So Steve and Jeff, you guys had to wait a few years after college before becoming full-time NFL starting quarterbacks. And for Alex and Brock, it happened, you know, your rookie season. So let's delve into that a little bit. Steve, when you were traded from Tampa Bay to the 49ers, did you know that you'd be backing up Joe Montana as long as you ended up backing him up?
Let's dive into this. Let's dive into this. All I remember, and then sweet Bill Walsh has passed away, so he can't refute this. He's a great man, and everybody said he was a genius. He was. It was all of that and more. And so much of the league, and especially the 49ers, are built off the back of what Bill did. So I want that to be clear to everybody, because the story I'm about to tell you might diminish some of the things that I just said. But he had pitched me, because I was dying in Tampa. It was rough, you know. It was if you need a lot of help to be good in the NFL, and I don't care who you are, you need a lot of help. And when he offered the chance to come, he told me that Joe had 2 back surgeries, and he just had the last one, you know, a week ago. It was in the off season, and he doesn't think I don't know how he's going to recover. And I said, well, I'm not happy to hear that. That's a terrible thing. But if there's an opportunity like that, I'll take it. You know, I'd love to jump in. And so I jumped in, and I just remember the first OTA practice, or the training camp practice, and I went out early and got dressed. And I'd never met Joe my whole life, and obviously admired everything he'd done. And so, right, the last guy comes running out, and practice about to start, and Joe comes running out. And the first thing I think is, he doesn't look hurt. I turned to Coach Bill and I'm like, Bill, he's not hurt. And he did this to me many times through the years, but he went just like, he's famous for this, like. Off we went. And then that was the day that Ted Walsh, the old equipment manager, thought he'd play a joke on me, and because I didn't have cleats that day. And so he gave me a pair of cleats, I put them on, and then he told Joe, hey, I gave him a pair of your cleats, so go out and make fun of me. And so Joe, the first time I met him, I said, hey Joe, nice to meet you. He goes, nice cleats. And I looked at him like, oh, it was a mess. It was a mess and it stayed a mess for a long time.
Well, oddly enough, Bill Walsh played a huge role in you, Jeff, in your getting an opportunity. There was a quote after you guys played, after San Jose State played Stanford. Bill Walsh said this. Bill Walsh, the head coach of Stanford, said this about the San Jose State quarterback. That Garcia kid, he has some Joe Montana-like things on that field. And then, did you even get tryouts, NFL tryouts, after your senior year at San Jose State?
What was that? I didn't even know what the combine was. I remember the pro scouts came to San Jose State and they're telling us, hey, on Thursday or whatever day it was, the pro scouts are going to be here and they want to measure you guys and they want to time you in a 40. And I'm like, why? I mean, I had no idea back then. You know, but that being said, no. Brock was Mr. Irrelevant. I was more irrelevant because I didn't get drafted, looked at, signed, nothing. But it's okay. It's okay. The little train still made his way up the mountain. And, you know, coming out. I remember that game. We played Stanford my senior year. It's a shootout, back and forth. We end up losing the game, but Bill makes that comment, and in the Mercury News or whatever it was back in the day. And fast forward a few months, I'm playing in the East-West Shrine game at Stanford, and Bill is walking around practice, and there's scouts, there's everybody out there, and my dad's out there at practice. He's like, hey Jeff, there's Coach Walsh. Why don't you walk up to him and tell him thank you for the kind words that he said. So I walk up to Coach Walsh and I'm like, hey Coach Jeff Garcia. And he's like, I know who you are. And I go, hey Coach, I just want to thank you for saying those words about me doing some Joe Montana-like things. I mean, that was my idol growing up. Watching the 49ers, watching Joe. And he goes, hey, you deserve it. And this weekend, you're going to be the MVP of the game. I'm like, well, that's cool. All right. So I go back to my dad. He's like, so what'd he say? And my grandpa's out there. So my grandfather played in the East-West Shrine game back in the 1930s. And we were the first grandfather-grandson combo to play in the East-West Shrine game. He was a farm boy from Kansas State, but that being said, he took the train out to the West Coast to play in the game. So they had him as an honorary captain. He was out there at practice with my dad. And my dad goes, well, what'd he say? And he goes, he told me I'm going to be the MVP this weekend. And he's like, oh, okay. Well, the game happens. We're down 28-7 in the fourth quarter, and I throw 3 touchdown passes, run for a 2-point conversion. And all the media who votes on the MVP is rushing up to change their MVP choice because it's late in the game. So I end up being co-MVP with an East player, quarterback as well, but we won the game. And that created a relationship with Coach Walsh. Now, granted, he's a San Jose State Spartan grad himself, so there was that, affiliation. But when I wasn't drafted or wasn't signed by an NFL team, I actually went to Coach Walsh and I said, hey, look, you have a ton of coaches around the National Football League. You believe in me. Do you think you could say anything to these guys and maybe there's a chance? He reached out. I got one call from Steve Mariucci, who was the quarterback coach of the Green Bay Packers at the time, under Mike Holmgren, who had coached with Bill here in San Francisco, and Coach Mariucci, granted no cell phones, I didn't have a pager, I didn't have any of that. I just happened to be at my apartment, San Jose State apartment, when the phone rang, and I answered. He's like, hey Jeff, this is Coach Mariucci from Green Bay Packers. I was told to give you a call. Mike Holmgren, and he goes, look, we're not going to bring in anybody. We have a guy by the name of Brett Favre, we have Mark Brunell, and we have Ty Denver. We probably will bring in a practice squad quarterback in the spring and then release him. That happened to be Kurt Warner. So he goes, if you have an opportunity in the CFL, he goes, I played in the CFL for a cup of coffee. I was with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. He goes, if you have a chance to go to the CFL, which Calgary Stampeders had my rights, go get some experience. And if it works out, then down the line, you may get a shot. Well, that was my only opportunity, was to go to the Canadian Football League and back up a guy by the name of Doug Flutie. One of the great, like you going into backup Joe, I mean, in a different way, the CFL was like going into backup Joe, but it was Doug. I mean, one of the greatest to ever play in the CFL. That being said, I kept in touch with Bill Walsh. And at one point, the World Football League is going on, and Bill goes, hey Jeff, I'm trying to get you with the Barcelona Dragons. You're Mexican, that's insane. That relationship that I maintained with Bill actually did work out for me, because when I did become a free agent in the Canadian Football League, after having an opportunity to learn from Doug for a year and a half, then start for 3.5 seasons, win a Grey Cup, Bill was now back with the 49ers on a management front office side, and he brought me in for a workout. It happened to be the 4th workout that I had with NFL teams, starting with the Raiders, Jacksonville, Miami, and the Rams, but we like to forget about the Rams. Who signed Kurt Warner after a brief arena ball adventure, but I had 2 offers. I had San Francisco and I had Miami, who offered me a contract. And I said, well, I'm much more of a Steve Young guy than a Dan Marino guy. Plus, this is my whole damn team. I'm coming home, baby! So, that was my opportunity. That was opened up by Bill Walsh, really, because they had just traded, I think Ty was backing you up, and they had traded him to Cleveland. And I think Mariucci was a little hurt by that, because he had him in Green Bay. He's like, they let go of my guy. Who's this Garcia kid they're bringing back? Don't you remember talking to me, coach? I did what you said to do, go to the CFL, now I'm back. I'm back. That really led to my opportunity to join the 49ers. Sorry I spoke so much.
Alex, I'm going to come at this from a different angle from you, because there are quarterbacks who wait their time.
Yeah.
You had it the other way, where the Kansas City Chiefs draft a quarterback and he was waiting for his time. You put together a heck of a season. What's that like? You had the background as being the #1 overall pick, but what it's like to be the starter when a young guy by the name of Patrick Mahomes is drafted.
Man. I think a couple of things. One, so Tim Rattay was the starting quarterback when I got drafted. He was the only guy in the QB room that had ever played, actually started football games. And the minute they named me the starter, they traded him away. And it was like week 3, and the 2 other QBs were Ken Dorsey and Cody Pickett, who had a combined 1 start. And I spent hours and hours by myself in the film room, staring at a screen and not even knowing what I was looking at. Right? I didn't even. It was such a waste of time what I was doing. I was working really hard. I was putting a lot of effort. And there's 0 results because I had no clue. Like I played in shotgun, wide open offense in college. All of a sudden I'm under center, fullback, 2 tight ends. Like I didn't even know West Coast terminology. And again, and I struggled mightily. And I think fast forward a little bit, I'd already kind of done this with Colin, with Cap. You know, certainly we didn't draft him in the first round, but second round, and he obviously crazy talented. And I think I also realized, like, listen, whether we get drafted or not, or where we go, right, we have very little control over this stuff, you know. And I think I found that as well. Like, listen, Cap and I, we didn't control that situation. We got put in it. Pat and I didn't control that situation, and certainly put in it. And there was a level of empathy for me for these young guys. I knew what it was like, how much I struggled with no guidance and mentorship, and I didn't want that on them, and so yeah, like, listen, and these guys got to watch me go about my business, and in the end there weren't any. I think that's what mentorship is. Like, you're not whispering secrets of like how to play quarterback, right? Like, it's just they get to see what do you do on a Monday, what do you go do on a Wednesday, how do you prepare, what do you do after a loss, how do you handle training camp practices, how do you talk to the receivers, how do you tell the play caller, I hate that play, I don't want you to call it, you know, like all those things they get an up close view of. So and again, I think certainly my experience as a rookie was the foundation of that. Like these guys were young picks, and they didn't need to have to go through what I went through. Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes that we
No, and listen, I love the Sean Payton thing out there. I don't know this is like he was going to take him at 11 because he knew he was going to be great. When we drafted him at 10, we jumped up to get him. There were so many people out there, pundits, that thought he was this gunslinger. This would never work. He'll never work in the NFL. This was a long shot, right? And I think certainly, you know, everybody's kind of come around at this point. No, he is. It's unorthodox, and no, nobody knew. You know, yeah, he made plays on the practice field, but it's practice, right? And I think the thing that definitely stood out, and everybody wants to talk about the arm angles and the no-look passes, and they're sweet, but it's the mentality. It's kind of what Steve was talking about, like that it thing. Like, he's a football player. Like, he loves coming in early, watching film. I'm sorry, you guys probably hate this. But he has that it about it. And that was very apparent very quickly that he had that.
And so for you, Brock, what was more difficult? Just going in cold off the sideline after Jimmy got injured, or now a full week and the entire storyline is your first start is going to be against Tom Brady's team?
Honestly, yeah, that week of preparation was probably worse. You know, Jimmy went down, and all right, you're up. So I'm in tune to what we're doing against Miami's defense and stuff on the sideline. And so when they said that I was in, I was like, all right, let's go. You know, I had already warmed up, and you know, all those weeks leading up to it, I obviously prepared as if I was going to play. And so, you know, when they said I was going in, it was like, all right, let's go. Got in. I think my first completion was a third down to Christian, and after I got that completion, I was like, all right, this is football. It's 11-11. It's what I've been doing my whole life. And so then we rolled, played the game, you win, and then it's the next week. It's, all right, you know, the coaches, everybody in the organization are like, all right, can we roll with you for the rest of the year, you know? And we're down to our third quarterback, and does this guy have what it takes? All those things, the questions. And next thing you know, you got Tom Brady rolling in town, and my family, I mean, you guys have probably all heard the story. They already booked their tickets like before the season even started to come to this game to watch Tom. All of that put together, I was like, man, this is it, you know, like for me, it was in the back of my mind, like, you know, I get one opportunity here, let's see what we can do with it. And, you know, was I playing against Tom Brady and all that kind of thing? Like, yes, his team, but it was the Bucs defense, that's what I was going up against, and that's where my mindset was at once the game started, and obviously we rolled and we didn't look back, so.
Were you upset, angry, whatever, that you lasted that long in the draft? Do you feel like, oh, you have something to prove to, I was going to say 31 NFL teams, But let's not forget the 49ers passed you over 6 times as well. So do you feel like you had something to prove to 32 NFL teams?
I mean, yes, but for me, more than anything was, dude, I just need a shot. I need an opportunity. Going into the draft, I knew that I was probably gonna be a day 3 guy to undrafted. I was real about myself. I was real about, just college and my film and all that. And so for me, I was like, I just need a shot. And if I get that, I'm gonna be excited about it. And, I'm gonna do everything I can to, prove myself right, rather than trying to point fingers and say, you guys all messed up. It hasn't been like that for my life. So that's not how I've looked at it. It's not how I live my life. And, I do believe that God had me drafted last for a reason. And I'm thankful more than anything for that.
You want to be the first pick in the draft, going to a team that we're all 49er fans, but at the time was struggling. Obviously, needs more help than just at the quarterback position, but it's thrust upon this young man. Or the last pick in the draft, going to a team that just went to the Super Bowl, that is stacked, that has the pieces in place to help you be successful. I mean, that's the thing about the quarterback position is so many people want to put the pressure on that one position, but we can't do it alone. It starts with our offensive line, which I know, hey, all you old linemen out there, hey, we appreciate you guys. But that being said, there's a reason why the teams picking first in the draft and going after a quarterback is a shot in the dark. You're putting a young man in a difficult position to lead a team that has a lot of issues. And this is the most team-oriented game there is in the world, and how it is managed on the field. 11 players have a job to do. Everybody is responsible for their job. If there are any cracks or leaks at any part of that, then more than likely, especially on offense, the play is going to fail. And, I was actually called to do a presentation to Brock at the Mr. Irrelevant social in Orange County. They must have thought, well, you're kind of irrelevant. And I'm like, well, I don't really know who Brock Purdy is. It's great he's going to the 49ers, but my 6th grade kid has a soccer game that I'm coaching. Unfortunately, I can't make it. But that being said, I would have loved to have been there to meet you, to introduce you, and just, hey, like me, you're a fighter, man. You're a fighter. And you know what? They picked you last, but it didn't matter. You got picked, and that's fuel to your fire to just go out there and, hey, prove not only to yourself, but everybody else what you're capable of and what you're made of, and you're definitely doing that.
Jeff, have you ever thought about being a preacher?
I am looking for that.
I'd come. Tell me what Sunday, I'll be there.
Girls flag football. They need to hear it. Just like you, big dog.
Hey, this is such a special night that a young quarterback at Notre Dame heard about it, and he wanted to come in here and soak up the knowledge that you guys have. I want to introduce Riley Leonard right there in the... Riley, stand up. Jeff started this in my job by asking questions here. Do you have a question for these guys?
Yes, I know a lot of USC fans out there, so I'm sorry about that.
Stand up.
If you guys could give any advice on rookie quarterback in the league, where you can tell yourself something that you know now, looking back, what would you tell us?
Who wants that one?
Go ahead, Jeff. I mean, I'll let you.
I mean, Brock was probably the best rookie out of all of us, so he might be better equipped to answer that. I mean, man, I think be confident in yourself, right? You're good enough. I think your best is good enough. I also think, and it's probably gonna be, this is just gonna be so many cliches coming out right now, but like, enjoy the process. right? I think we get so caught up in a destination and something, and certainly it's important to set goals, but your habits make the most difference, right? Your daily habits are going to make the difference. And again, all of us, whether you're the first pick or the last pick, like the road's not easy, right? There's going to be struggles. Embrace the struggle, right? Like you were meant to go through it, and you'll be better for having gone through it. Right? And I think so oftentimes, sometimes adversity strikes, and I've been there. Like it's too heavy, you don't want it, it's uncomfortable, but you get on the other side of it, and that's where growth happens. That's where improvement happens. So.
Well, I think, first of all, embrace the moment. You still have one more year of college football. You have an opportunity to be the best that you can be for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I mean, take advantage of that opportunity. It's a precious, special opportunity that you have in front of you. I mean, my kids, as a 12-year-old, so Dad, what professional football team do you think I'm going to play for? And I go, none. You don't even play Pop Warner yet. Like, first be good here. Be good right now. Be good right now. Be the best that you can be right now. Everything else will take care of itself if you maximize your opportunity. There are only a few opportunities in life. Hell, I was a 29-year-old rookie, not a 21-year-old rookie. I mean, I had hair everywhere. But that being said, you have opportunities in life, as all of us know, are very precious and few. Are you prepared to take advantage of the opportunity? Have you done the necessary work, mentally, physically, all across the board, to be prepared when that moment strikes to capitalize on it? Do that right now. Think about that right now. Then you can ask those questions about, hey, what's it like to be a rookie quarterback, because now you're drafted in the NFL or you're signed by an NFL team. Hey, it's a precious few that get to be in that position. And you still have one more year to show that you're worthy of it.
Hey, Brock, I want to ask you, because I think Jeff's making a point around one of the things that you have a superpower is processing. And the idea that as a young player, you jumped on the field against the Miami Dolphins and just started processing. How would you tell him to get ready to do that? Because to me, that's the thing. If you could take that quality and you would spread it around every quarterback, we'd be like so blessed. And how would you describe how you were ready to process right out of the gate?
Yeah, I mean, it sort of hits to Jeff's point just in terms of being where you are right now, playing right now, not trying to jump to a conclusion of getting to the NFL so fast. Like, there's a process to life. And I feel like a lot of people nowadays want to just skip the process. They want to get to places because they see guys where they're at, and they don't want to, go through the good and the bad and all that kind of stuff. But what I would say is I played 4 years at Iowa State, so all those reps of defenses and schemes, like all that stuff added up. Just the game prep, all of it, man. Seeing different safety structures, blitzes, you name it. All those things added up to when I did get in against Miami, dude. I was like, I feel like I'm back at Iowa State playing 11 on 11. So, yeah, hopefully.
Quote Bill Walsh again. This is again about you, Jeff. He's had this to say to Scott Ostler of the Chronicle in 2001. He said, when it comes to instincts and intuition and the presence and the poise, Jeff ranks with anybody who's played. He's that good, he really is. And I think what strikes me about those words, reading them so many years later, is that those are all elements of quarterback play that simply cannot be measured. So I'm going to ask each of you guys, if you were a scout looking for a quarterback in college, it's arm strength, whatever, mobility, whatever, accuracy, obviously, what would you be looking for specifically to think that a quarterback who's successful at the college level can make that transition, become an NFL superstar?
I'd want to see through somehow to test as adrenaline runs through the body and pressure builds and expectations and the crowd yells, what is the reaction that quarterback has? Because most human beings, I'd say 99.9% of human beings, when the adrenaline flows, the pressure builds, expectations grow, your mind narrows, and you get tighter, and you don't perform as good at, I'm not my full self. And if you're going to be good in the NFL, and that's where the true test is. In college, I think you can get through it without knowing this. But in the NFL, it is the great filter. And I can tell you that everyone up here on this panel has an unusual knack that as things build, pressure builds, our kind of genetic reaction is that it's a calming force in a weird way. It's like you settle down. Now, you can see Jeff get riled up, but that's the thing, that if you could know that and could test that, then, because that's the part that look, you can watch him throw, you can watch him run around, you can do all those tests that can show you how that will translate. That's all important. But the thing that matters in the NFL is that when you're on the field and you now have to go process through play after play after play after play against the best athletes in the world, how does your body respond to that? The adrenaline that's running through you, and it's just an oddity. And it feels like if you played in the NFL very long, you passed that test. And if you knew that as a senior in college, and you could go draft, if I could draft that way, I could almost guarantee success in the NFL if you had that quality.
If we're looking at a kid and considering him for the NFL, we already see that he's got a certain set of skills. But like Steve said, in crunch time, in the moment when the game is on the line, how does he react is one thing, and Steve just touched on that. The other thing is, will his teammates run through a brick wall for him? What kind of leader is this guy, not only on the field, but in the locker room, in the community? What type of person is he? Do his teammates love him? Do they want to just go to battle with him and for him? I think that's important, because when you look at what we do from our position, we are really trying to rally the troops, bring 10 other guys into that huddle, inspire them, motivate them, direct them to do their best job, not by telling them to do it, but by showing it ourselves in how we approach the game, how we dedicate ourselves to the game, how we study the game, how we go into the weight room, onto the practice field. I know that in watching Steve and watching Doug, my mentality on the practice field, I don't want to see the ball hit the ground. I had a level of expectation for myself to be perfect out there. I know come game day, things aren't going to be perfect. There's going to be trials and tribulations, adversity, all the things that you're going to have to overcome. How do you deal with those type of situations? But preparing yourself to be the best that you can be, and then coming on to game day, how do you react in those situations? What's your timing like? What's your decision making like? How do you respond after making a mistake? Do you learn from it? Do you improve from it? Do you move past it? And then just like, hey, at the end of the day, this is a gladiator's game. We're warriors. How do you inspire, motivate, hey, grit your teeth and just grab hold of your partners, your family, and go to war, so to speak? That's what it's all about. And I want to know what this young man is all about. Do you exemplify that? I already know you can throw a pass 70 yards. I don't care about that. I want to know what else you can do and how you motivate yourself and your teammates.
You know, every single one of us up here played probably with multiple guys that were bigger, stronger, threw it better. Like every single one of us. There were guys that you'd go out to practice like, holy smokes, you see that guy throw? Like, that guy throws an unbelievable ball. Like, and they look pretty in shorts. And it doesn't always translate, right? And I think if there's something that is especially unique to the NFL.
Say, I don't look good in shorts. I look good in shorts.
You do, Steve.
Great cap.
Great caps. I think the one thing though that's so unique in the NFL is and I've heard Steve say this so many times, like a great defense is going to make you win from the pocket. I don't care how gifted an athlete you are, how, whatever tools you might have, you got to be able to play in a phone booth. And it's noisy, it's crashing down on top of you, and you have to play with anticipation as well. And that goes to the processing that Steve talked about. Like, I remember Vita asked me to define what open was in college. Like, I mean, you're throwing, like the windows are enormous, right? Like what's open in the NFL, like you throw guys open, right? I mean, it's so drastically different. I remember like as a rookie, like not throwing a ball on time. And I remember them asking me, why'd you throw it? Well, I couldn't see it, right? And like, cause in college I saw everything, right? Like, cause you're throwing through these huge lanes.
Oh, he
like
said
in
in college, everyone's open, and in pros, nobody's open.
In the NFL, it was so funny, like you get to the point where like, if you didn't throw without seeing a guy, you couldn't play quarterback. Like, you throw balls all the time, and you have to have faith, and there's all these other factors that you're taking in, input, and you have to have trust to play like that. And again, and these guys are both kind of saying the same thing, that there's no greater feeling, I think, for an NFL quarterback to stand in the pocket with someone bearing down on you and to not even flinch and to deliver a ball and take a hit and to be accountable to the 10 other guys on your team and to make that play, right? To be on your back, to hear the roar, like that. And I don't know how you identify that, right? It's certainly not the combine running a 40 in spandex. But, if you can see that on film, and certainly I think Brock's like 4 years of film, right? Playing at a high level. And certainly, like, what else do you need? Right? And it's all
Brock, how
right
do you
there.
look in spandex?
I clearly did. I won the freaking thing. And a lot of help that was.
Brock, what you've heard, does that kind of resonate with you? Does that all make sense?
100%. I mean, I'm still young in the league, so I'm still learning. But man, everything that they just said, I think hits. The processing, the grind. It is a long year. It's not college where you're playing 10, 12, 13 games. Like, you're going 17 weeks, preseason, camp, postseason, Super Bowl. Like, it is a grind. And so it's hard, man. Like, those scouts, what they're looking for in a college quarterback, to find a guy that's getting ready to run that kind of marathon year after year after year, like, it's tough. It's a tough job to evaluate, but everything that they said is 100% true.
There's a test that quarterbacks are giving out. I think all players are giving out, the S2 cognition. You took it. Did you sense, as you were taking it, apparently you scored very highly on it as far as processing. Did you see those elements of what that test meant? Did you take it at the combine?
Yeah, oh yeah.
And so how did you view that test? And why do you think you scored so highly, if you even know?
I'm not gonna lie, once we got to the combine, like nowadays, dude, you take a million mental tests and they run you through a bunch of tests. They want to know every little thing about you, how you think, how you respond, how you react, you name it. And so I can't remember exactly the S2, but there's a bunch of tests just like that one. And but yeah, man, every GM, like you name it, they want to see how you think and how you process things, and it does translate, man. It translates to how you learn, how quickly can you learn. Every week we're getting a new install. It's not the same playbook over and over. Everything changes every week, and so how can you adapt, learn, grow, and then perform on the field that week in and week out. And so yeah, I remember taking that test, but there's a bunch of other tests like that. So
Well, somebody who never played football made those tests. Didn't you see 50 games of him playing at Iowa State where he was making great decisions and leading his team and doing all the things? But no, we want to see how you answer these questions right here. I mean, you're either a football player or you're not.
Overcoming obstacles of adversity, and Brock, we'll start with you on this one. I mean, a year ago, you went to a San Francisco Giants game, you were introduced, you waved, some fan in front of you gave you a high five, and the internet exploded. How could that guy be doing that to Brock Purdy's elbow? 3 days ago, you were at the Giants game throwing out the first pitch, and
Some found out, but I want to say like 80, 85.
Okay, we'll go with that. So how, I mean, you were 5 games in, plus the playoffs, you have that injury. How did you stay sharp? How did you keep from going in the tank during that off season? I mean, you basically didn't have an off season of getting better. It would have been your first full off season of really diving in and doing everything. So how did you overcome that obstacle?
Yeah, I think first off, it sounds cheesy, but I was where I was at. Just wherever my feet are at, that's where I'm at. My arm torn, boom, surgery. So I showed up to rehab every day, and it was that. How can I rehab the best every day for however many hours, day in, day out, and then not comparing myself to anybody else. You know, there's a lot of buzz going on, dude. Are you gonna get back to the season? We're bringing in some quarterbacks that have played before. It's easy to get caught up in the world of, oh my gosh, like doubt. Am I gonna make it? Or whatever. And so I didn't want to compare myself to anybody else. I was where I was at, and I really did trust that it was going to work out how it needed to. You know, I'm a faithful man, so I believe that it was going to work out. But I didn't try to jump to conclusions, see the future, anything like that. If I did that, I probably would have been a big mental head case of, am I going to make it back or not? Like, I'm freaking out about things that are out of my control. And so for me, man, I still hammered away at the playbook, watched the games that I played. How can I get better? Get back to the facility, get around the guys, continue to build on those relationships. All those little things I feel like added up, and I feel like I did every little thing right in terms of the rehab to get back for game 1 of the season. But I didn't compare myself, and I was where I was at.
And so what's your off-season like now compared to a year ago? Well, we know what it was a year ago. What's it like now?
Yeah, I mean, now it's, all right, I'm healthy. How can I get my body better? Physically, mentally, hammering away all the games that we played in last year. I got so many more reps last year than I did my rookie year. So looking at different concepts situationally, like before the half, at the end of the game, the other team just scored a touchdown. They have the momentum. We've looked at all those little things, and I think that's where I can get better as a quarterback, is situational football. And so having 18, 19, however many games we played last year to look at, that's been probably the biggest thing. And then translating on the field and get better physically. So.
And then, Alex, your career started with the obstacles of, that we've talked about, not having supporting cast in the world, having, I lost count of how many offensive coordinators you had in how many years. And then later in your career, you had an unspeakable injury that not only nearly cost you your career, it nearly cost you your life. Do you separate those two? Were they completely different, or did one help you in dealing with the other?
Oh no, very, very related. Yeah, very related. I think that a lot of the lessons I learned early on in my career, I took with me and applied very much. You know, when I really adversity hit, certainly with my leg. A lot of the same things, a lot of the same self-doubt that I dealt with as a young rookie. It was the same self-doubt when they were talking about cutting off my leg and I'm stuck in a wheelchair and I can't walk and I'm thinking my life's over, right? I'm never gonna be able to play with my kids. I'm never gonna be able to go on a walk with my wife. It was the same self-doubt. And those are extreme examples, but it's the same self-doubt that we all deal with, right? Like as all human beings, we all deal with adversity and struggle. And I think for me, no different. I stole it from I was lucky enough to play with a teammate named Blake Costanzo. You gotta be probably a diehard fan to remember Blake. He was this crazy special teamer, man, crazy. And before games was probably when my anxiety was at its worst. And because you play once a week, here we are before Sundays, like I'm in my head, like, God, what if I make a mistake? What if they boo me? My mind going 15 other directions. And Blake, he would run around the locker room and he would get in everybody's face. And again, this guy's like our third string linebacker. He's the guy that runs down on kickoff and return, which you kind of got to be crazy to do that. And he would run around and he'd be like, Jeff, are you going to live today? Because I'm going to live. And he would like run around. It was like crazy energy. And I'm like, what is he talking about? And he would watch him play and he was fearless, right? And that example, and again, I couldn't have been I was on the completely other end of the spectrum. And his example of watching him take on the same thing of like, we're playing football in front of 80,000 screaming fans. It is hard, right? But like he, again, really embracing it. And that example for me, and really about being present, that's what he was talking about, right? Again, I was distracting myself, comparing myself, wondering what they're gonna write about me in the paper, all these things, all these what ifs. And a lot of them really negative. And again, it was really about being present and being focused on the things that you can control, right? That really matter, and no different than with my injury. Same thing, again, getting out of your own head, eliminating distractions, whether they're internal or external, right? Focusing on what matters, which so often are the little things, right, in life. And so I still to this day, I've got anxiety, man. Like, it's a challenge to myself. Like, are you gonna live, right? Can you be present in the moment? Right? When every time I feel anxiety in my mind wandering over something stupid, right? Can you live? And it's certainly a challenge to myself. I used it for the rest of my career. I stole it from Blake, and I still use it today. So thank you, Blake.
What comes to your mind as the biggest obstacle that you overcame to get to where you ended up getting?
Myself, I think just proving that I was worthy, obviously, not being looked at coming out of college. I mean, it goes back to coming out of high school. I wasn't recruited. I went to the junior college in Gilroy, Gavilan Junior College, played for my dad, you know, one of my greatest coaches to ever play for. And I grew up watching him coach and how he just brought the best out of people. That being said, it taught me a lot just about my own value to a team, and also just the experiences of life. I mean, the adversity that we deal with as individuals, just like anybody else. We are people, and we go through our own struggles, we go through our own difficult times. My family is well documented with what we've gone through as a family, and a lot of those things really wired me to be who I am today, and just not worrying about when the opportunity would present itself, but taking advantage of the opportunity that I have right now. If that was at the junior college or at San Jose State or in the Canadian Football League, how can I be the best player for this team in this moment, knowing that I'm doing the necessary things to prepare myself. You know, I went through a difficult first 5 starts after Steve went down, unfortunately. My first start at home was a good one, and I thought, this is easy, and I got this. And then all of a sudden the wheels slowly started to fall off, and it was a man, our quarterback coach, God rest his soul, Greg Mack, who pulled me aside after they benched me for 2 games. And he had put together a list of plays, probably 50 plays. He goes, I want you to sit down and watch. These are 50 plays from your first 5 games. These are successful plays. These are plays where you made the right decision. You made a good throw. You did something positive. Like, you need to remind yourself that you're here for a reason. That you belong here. Because, honestly, there was doubt. I mean, when you're the guy that everybody looks at as the major change from the guy who preceded you, and those teams were championship caliber teams, and now all of a sudden the team is struggling, they're losing games. Well, what's the difference? Well, it's the quarterback. It's not Steve Young, it's not Joe, it's this guy Jeff. But that being said, you know, that 2 games of me being on the sideline watching and not seeing anything really improve within the team, I think it helped me realize that I need to stop putting so much pressure on myself. Cannot be perfect out there, but you are capable of being enough. And the next 5 games, even though the outcome wasn't any different, the production was different. The confidence was different. How I stepped into the huddle became different. And that led to the next year being a record-setting year, a Pro Bowl year, but yet we still struggled as a team. We were going through growing pains. But I had turned the corner and found a way to prepare myself, to block out the noise, to deal with whatever was coming my way and be prepared for it. And finally, we did start to turn things around. We did win an NFC West division title. We did go back to the playoffs 2 years in a row. And, you know, those I appreciate so much more because of the struggle that I had to deal with personally, go through, and overcome. And we all hit those walls in some sort of way at different times in our lives. It's how we deal with that adversity and how we learn from it and grow from it, and we're able to turn it around. You know, Alex went through some struggles in his first, probably 6 years. Harbaugh comes, brings some consistency at the position, then all of a sudden he's dealing with, am I on, am I off, am I on, but yet he's playing at a much different level and goes on to have, you know, an excellent second half of his career. You know, we all go through different experiences, and, you know, we're up here, us three, because we were able to create longevity in something that very few are able to create and experience and have the success that we have been able to have. And now Brock is scratching the surface, and he's so much further ahead than probably we were at the same time frame. But yet you see the humility, you see the work ethic, you see the dedication that he has to his craft and how important it is. And each one of us approached it, not to say we were identical, but had our own method to the madness as to how we prepared ourselves to get into that zone, and be the best that we can be in that moment.
Steve, what do you consider the biggest obstacle that you overcame?
I was a sophomore in high school, and I was a quarterback for the JV team, and it was Labor Day Monday. Varsity played on Saturday, and the JV played on Mondays. It just happened to be a holiday, and so all the parents were there, and the varsity team was there, and the varsity coach, which wasn't usually the case. And I went out and threw 6 interceptions. And I remember that one of the interceptions literally I went to throw the ball, and it kind of slipped out of my hand, went straight up in the air. And I remember looking at the ball straight in the air, like, oh my hell, this is a disaster. And I was like, can I jump? How high can I jump to try to get this ball so it's not another interception? Of course, I didn't get it. It was the last interception of the game. And after the game, the varsity coach gathered the JV squad. And I can still remember him saying, this is the worst group of athletes I've ever seen. And if that's the worst group of athletes he's ever seen in his life, who's the worst athlete in the worst group of athletes he's been talking to who just threw 6 interceptions? You know? And I just, you know, when you said the obstacles, I mean, there's 1,000 obstacles. But my brain went to, oh yeah, that was the big one. And I think that that's really true about how, like, you know, you're gonna run into all kinds of crap. And I just remember that one, and I was just not gonna live that way. It was not gonna go down like that. And I never threw 6 ever again. 26 touchdowns, not 6 interceptions.
Another thing that you guys share in common is, and Brock, your sample size is smaller than these guys, but you each enjoyed playoff games, like incredible success in specific playoff games, crazy games. Steve, you know, record-setting 6 touchdown passes in the Super Bowl. Both Jeff and Brock rallying your team back from crazy second half deficits for wins. And of course, Alex, I've never heard candlestick louder in that game against the Saints. So if you guys wouldn't mind, when I said those particular games for each of you, give me a snapshot of what really stands out as you were going through it, or maybe even just in the minutes after it. Brock, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I mean, the NFC Championship, Detroit down 17.5, and then all I remember it was just like, all right, one play at a time, man, from here on out, and everyone believed it. You know, we had obviously the guys to do it, but I remember the first play in the second half, threw it to Debo on a 20-yard in route, and from that moment on, I was like, okay, like, this is us. You know, we got to play like us. And long story short, score touchdowns, we come back, defense balled out, got some crucial stops, and then I remember there was one drive towards the end. I scrambled for first down, got the first, and then after that, Christian punched it in, or had a good run in, and then I think Elijah Mitchell punched it in. But right then and there, I was like, dude, this is team football. You know, it's not just one guy putting the whole team on his back, and it takes everybody in the organization. And in that moment, I was like, this is not easy. Like, this is tough. Like, the NFL is tough. To get to the Super Bowl, to do all those things that you want to do, there's going to be those crazy, nasty wins. And so that's what comes to mind is how tough it is. But, man, is it worth it. So.
Let's go with Jeff, because that game was similar to that game against the Giants, that you guys were down, what was it, 34 to...
38.
38 to 14. 38 to 14.
It was yesterday. You know, it's a football game. A lot of things have to happen. A lot of things have to go your way. Not only do we have to score more than 24 points, but our defense needs to come up with some big stops. Thankfully, Jeremy Shockey dropped a touchdown pass in the back of the end zone, so they only went up 24 instead of 28. If they're up 28 with 6 minutes left to go in the third quarter, I mean, 4 touchdowns is a little more difficult than 3 touchdowns and extra 2-point conversions. That being said, it was difficult all around, but there was a quiet calmness on the sideline, honestly. I mean, there was a sense of calm on the sideline that it wasn't about, okay, we can't make up 24 points in one play, but we need to string some drives together. We need to get some defensive stops. A lot of things have to go our way, but we're capable, right? And we stepped in that huddle and, we went into the 2-minute offense, no huddle offense, and we started to click, put a drive together. Finishing with Tio on a shallow cross. He breaks a tackle. He gets into the end zone. We cap it with a 2-point conversion. Now we're down 16 with an entire quarter to play still. Little different scenario now. Now you think about, okay, we have more than 15 minutes left in the game. Just need to stop by our defense. Well, the Giants were roaring on offense against us that day, but they decided to pump the brakes a little bit. Kind of like when a basketball team goes into the 4 corners and they're up like 4 and then they blow it and give it away. Well, they started to pump the brakes. They weren't as aggressive. We got to stop. We got the ball back, put another drive together. I remember hitting Eric Johnson on a dragon, which is a slant flat combo, and both defenders went to the slant. He catches in the flat. He turns up the sideline for a big game. He was our tight end at the time, and we followed it with, I think, 90 QB, little trap fake to the back going inside, and I took it around the edge and completely fooled the defense. I was able to scamper in for the touchdown. We get another 2-point conversion. Now we're down 8 with, a good chunk of the game left. We get a field goal with the next drive. They miss a field goal at some point during that fourth quarter. They had all kinds of struggles on special teams, thankfully, on that day. And, we get the ball back with a few minutes left, and people are trying to come back into the stands. First of all, whoever left, shame on you. And I hope they didn't let you back in. No, I'm kidding. Hey, it was rocking and rolling. Whoever was there still was rocking and rolling. It was awesome. It was one of the greatest experiences in my life, and I wish I could bottle up and keep it with me forever. We put a drive together. We got in the end zone again, and we missed the 2-point conversion. There was a big fight after the 2-point conversion, kind of started by T.O. and Jeremy Newberry, but it forced them to throw out the New York Giants safety. And here we are now, up a point with a little less than 2 minutes left. And now, hey, we're hanging on the seat of our pants on the sidelines and, just hoping we could get a stop. And Ahmed Plummer, man, I thought we sealed the deal. Makes a great play on defense. It looks like he picks it off on a go pattern on the sideline. And it leaked out at the last second, so they still were alive. They get the ball down the field. Obviously, we all know what happened next. The field goal attempt, the bad snap, and all the things. After the game, that was a moment, like I said, I wish I could bottle up. The feeling in that stadium, Candlestick, it's too bad, Brock, as much as Levi is a beautiful stadium, that you didn't get to experience Candlestick.
The Candlestick breathed. You can feel it.
The lore, the
You
history,
see the whole thing kind of move with you. The fans are like, he's like, I hope this thing doesn't fall down. People are coming, man.
the wind swirling this way and then it's going this way. And I'm not going to throw a comeback over there because the wind's coming this way. It made me decide what throws I could make at certain times just based upon what was going on. But at the end of that game, walking through the tunnel, the baseball tunnel back to our locker room was just, the feeling in that locker room was just awesome. It was awesome. It was, it was one of those experiences that, it will live with me, it will live with that team, it will live with us forever.
That game against the Saints, was that the most love you felt as a member of the organization?
Like Jeff's saying, kind of an unforgettable. Like, I can't get the image of Candlestick, like Steve's talking about at the end of that game, certainly the back and forth in the fourth quarter. I've never heard a place so loud that it did kind of come to life. And Candlestick for me was so different, because just like real quick, and Brock, you probably don't know this tunnel Jeff's talking about, you walk through this, it's like a 100-yard tunnel. There are pipes above you that are leaking, all cement. And I'm like, you get
There's bats in there.
Okay, you can grab the NFL team, right? It's the best of the best. You're like sharing a locker with somebody at the home stadium. You walk through this 100-yard tunnel. Again, it's really creepy. You're like, what is this? You come out of the dugout. But anyway, then it had its own weather system. It would be sunny down here and like 75. You go up there and it was like drizzly and windy. And I'm like, I didn't understand the nostalgia for a long time.
High tide, it smelled.
Yes. Oh.
It was seeping down here. It was all us, baby. Awesome.
It took me several years to develop this pride for Candlestick. A lot of years I'm like, it's wet again. Why is it raining again? Anyway, but then you would look across the way at the other quarterbacks, and it was like it would play head games with them. And one of the guys that would mess with the most was Drew Brees. And we happened to get him. We were both 13-3. We got the home game though because of the tiebreaker, and they were complaining about it. They just won a Super Bowl. One of the most prolific offenses in the history of football. Drew, one of the best quarterbacks ever. We're no match for them. I'm a game manager. We're running the ball. And it just it very much, we didn't have a chance. And we jumped up on them. And they come roaring back. He throws the jump ball to Jimmy Graham, and they go up. And I think, for me, our entire team, there were so many of us that had been through those 7 coordinators in 7 years. Frank Gore and Vernon and Joe Staley and Patrick Willis. And I've been through a lot of crap. And I think it was certainly a moment for all of us to kind of come together and obviously to win it like that. Certainly a lot of things have to go right. But it's the image. Every time I'm driving by Candlestick Park now, and the sign still says Candlestick Park, I got my kids in the car. They're very tired of this every time we drive by. That's the game I rep. Certainly, because I can't get it out of my head how electric it was to be a part of that. So could only imagine what Steve's memories embody of that place. So, yeah.
I referenced the Super Super Bowl, but what sticks in your mind more, that game or the game before?
Well, you think about 49er history and playing the Cowboys, and the good and bad of that, and how really it was the two of us for the whole league. Like we knew it from the first day of training camp, and it was just going to be a matter of who beat who in the championship game. And so having them in that wet, soggy, I remember they were warming up in Troy, it was like, what is this field? You know, I'm like, it's nothing, bro, it feels good to me. And it was a unique place, and it was a unique field, and everyone's just described it, and I really, there's great memories, and people even today will stop me on the street. I sat in section 47, and it was that section 47 would travel together. They would go on vacations together. They had known each other for like their whole lives, and their kids and grandkids. Like it's just the way it was, and so there was a family feel. And it still is. It's beautiful. And that really doesn't become that over time because it just takes time to do that. But it was just kind of a special place. Sad to see it go. But that game was super special, and it set up the Super Bowl. And the Super Bowls are, you know, you can't imagine what's on the line. And Brock just got done with being in the middle of one. I just remember Mike Shanahan, who's Kyle's dad, was my offensive coordinator, and I called him, Mike, let's go over it against Shanahan. And I didn't mind that, because I think, Brock, you appreciate it too. I don't mind going over it again. But at some point, you can't go over it again. And so the Super Bowl's hard because it's a long warm-up and the whole thing, and so Mike, let's go over it against Shanahan was like in his heyday, you know? And I'm like, finally I was like, Mike, I can't go over it again. You know? And he goes, we don't need to go over it again. You're going to throw 8 touchdowns. And I'm like, that's just, why are you saying that? It's stupid. Because I'm serious. I'm like, Mike, you're going to throw 8 touchdowns? He goes, this is a game, Steve. This is the one. You just follow the call. I'm going to call it to do it. And so I remember he came in at halftime and he'd thrown 4. And he looked at me dead in the eye and said, I told you. And that's when I was like, are you serious? So we ended up with 6, and I came out of the game because we had the lead, and I went over to the phone to call him and say, Mike, you know, Super Bowl champs is amazing. You know, Mike, how you feel? Thanks so much for an amazing year. He's like, get back in the game! There's 2 more, I told you there's 2 more. Tell George that we're not done. We're not done yet, I don't care what the score is, we're not done. He was like livid. And then I go to George, and I'm like, George, Mike says, we got 2 more to go, like, yeah. And George like, tell me he's crazy, you know, but but Mike was super upset at it. So it's funny to me, because you think about 6 touchdowns, which is kind of unusual. Is that, you ever say, well, how do you throw 6 touchdowns? Go for 8. And that's Mike, and that's the DNA. The DNA that Brock has inherited, because Kyle's very similar. I mean, Kyle and Mike are very similar guys, very similar dudes. And I don't know if he's Kyle, let's go over it against Shanahan or not, he probably is. But he's the kind of guy who's going to look in the eye and go, there's 8 touchdowns out there, let's go get them. So we're in good hands. We're in good hands with Shanahan.
Okay, we're going to wrap this thing up a little bit, but Brock, they got you another wide receiver in the NFL draft, Ricky Pearsall. Did you really pay a 70-burger on his team in high school?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
I will say, on his defense, I think Ricky broke the state record in that game as well for like 250 to 300 yards receiving by himself. So he's a baller.
okay. And have you had an opportunity to throw to him yet?
Oh yeah.
So what was it? Was it 70-69? I mean, what was the score?
No, they didn't. I think they had like 50 or something. 70 was enough for us. But yeah, we're throwing, we're getting after it, and he's a sharp kid, so he's got a bright future, and we're gonna roll. So.
All right. We're ready to turn off the lights here, so let's just stand up for this next one. Maybe I'll keep the answers a little bit shorter. You're coming off the Super Bowl, and it ended the way you wanted it to. What's the mindset of the team right now, starting the offseason program? and just where are you guys from a mental standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, we got to start from the ground back up, just with the base, the fundamentals. Why are we doing what we're doing? You know, our culture, our organization. It's the beginning of the off season, so that's where we're at. We're starting back over again, but we got the right guys. We got everybody in the organization that we want and that we love, and so obviously we got that taste in our mouth from last year, but man, we're doing everything in our power, you know, for the faithful and everybody here. So we're gonna.
From the alumni, what are your words of encouragement, or what do you see from the 49ers heading into the 2024 season?
Steve, we'll let you take that one.
I'm still reeling from the whole Barcelona, Mexico. I'm trying to figure out what the heck is going on. I told the team, I got a chance to talk to the team before the Super Bowl, and the way that they play, the guys that they are, the locker room that's been built, the leadership that kind of oozes out of the building, Brock's spirit of selflessness and how they all look at the game very much resonates with how I felt about our run for 20 years. And so in that way, I feel that, you know, there's a beauty to how the 49ers are doing it right now. And I think they're doing it better than anybody else. Now, I haven't proven exactly that, we'll beat the Chiefs and that kind of thing, but we'll be right there every year. I just really believe that. And then it's a matter, like Bill Walsh used to say, set up base camp in the playoffs and then just go attack Everest. And that's what's going to happen every year. And I think it's super fun to think about the people that John Lynch has brought together with Jed, how Kyle deploys them. Brock's now our leader, and it's just a fun time to be a 49er fan.
I have the fortunate opportunity to now watch the game as a fan, and I have 4 kids that sit there and watch football and love football, and you know, I love what has been assembled here with the 49ers. You see a team that truly loves each other. Now, when you go to war, when you go to battle every single day in practice, on game day, you got to have a brotherhood in that locker room. And you see how these guys support each other. And I'm not in there. I can only see it through the television. You know, I'm at home like a lot of you. I'm watching the games. But you see an attitude within this team that believes in one another, that battles every single day in practice against each other and together. And then they take it out onto the field. And you see that spirit. And, you know, like Steve has said, the assembly of the athletes is there, and these seem to be high character athletes in the sense of how they approach the game and how they unite and push each other. And as long as we can keep that together, and this man leading the pack, hey, we're going to compete every single game, and we're going to have a chance to win every single game. It's just about
Listen, Brock doesn't need any advice from me or this. The team, Steve said it, what Kyle and John have built from the top, this level of sustained success, it's rare. It's really rare, right? And, you know, you hope that certainly the experience these guys had last year, getting that close to the top of Everest and not quite getting it, is maybe just what they needed, right? As hard as it is to take, and, you know, certainly they're starting back over with draft picks and, you know, OTAs right now, but certainly I think we all feel the same way about this team and what they're capable of, and excited to cheer them on this next fall.
All right. All right, people. Is that great or what?
I feel like I need to say something about Dwight Clark just real quick, because that's his name we're here tonight. Dwight passed away of ALS, and the things we just talked about, the 49ers and who we are as a group of people, he was the Pied Piper for those years that he was. I threw him his last touchdown before he retired, and as he was passing, you know, as he was ailing, we would go down to have lunch with Dwight, and a group of us would go down to Santa Cruz to his house and see him, and it was getting worse and worse. It was harder and harder to be there and to see that. And at one point, someone asked Dwight, Dwight, as you're facing all this adversity, you know, what would you tell us? And he says, you guys, it's relationships. As I sit here and I have to go through this every day, all I can really think about is the relationships that I've had in my life and the relationships that I've had with you. And so in the spirit of the great Dwight Clark and the Pied Piper and how we think the 49ers are a special place, it's really in the name of him tonight. And as we raise money, every dollar is going to go to the Golden Heart Fund, which is a fund for athletes that played for the 49ers, who are Niners, who are struggling later in their years, who are down in their luck and can't afford it. We're there to be the net underneath them to make sure that they're okay. And that's the spirit of the 49ers as well. So Brock, Alex, Jeff, thank you, Matt. Thank you for coming to help support these good people.
Jeff Garcia, Smith, Brock Purdy. Thank you to all of our sponsors for your generous support to a great cause. Big thanks to Kirk and Terry Reynolds for making this event happen. Brad managing.